This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Well, welcome. This is Michael Finch. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and welcome to the Glazov Gang. And we are honored tonight to have with us one of the great writers in America today. That's Daniel Greenfield. He also writes as Sultan Kanish, and he edits the blog at frontpagemag.com called The Point. Welcome, Daniel. Thank you for coming on. I know you're a frequent guest with Jamie on the show, so welcome tonight.
Thank you. I pretty much live here, but it's an honor to be interviewed by Michael Finch.
Well, I appreciate that. And folks, for you out in the audience who are wondering where Jamie Glazov is, he is away. He's kind of missing. We're not sure where he is. The last time, I'm guessing that he's maybe in some place like Bratislava, searching for one of his Eastern Bloc disco bouncer suits. But we'll wish him good luck with his shopping, and we'll continue on with serious matters and wish Jamie well. Daniel, I hate to again talk about politics and candidates, and there's been so much discussion on that, but we are really, I mean, the war has, of course, really come home. It's been, you know, in New York and Arkansas. It's been Texas. It's now out in California, and we've had 7 years of feckless leadership, and the 8 years before that was a little bit better, but still not what the country needs. So when you look at the candidates now, and we could probably spend 10 seconds on the Democrats, but I do want to talk about them very briefly. Do you see anyone, and I'm not asking for, we're not talking about endorsements, or is there anyone who understands what Islam is, that understands ISIS, understands the roots of this conflict, both in an historical sense and today? Is there anyone that gives you hope to say this person gets it?
Well, there have been some candidates who have said the right thing. There have been obviously Republican candidates who have said the wrong thing. But I think Ben Carson, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz have changed the conversation. They've said some things that you're not supposed to say, and they've gotten it, really. They've expressed the core conflict, which is that this is a clash of civilizations. This is a religious war. While too many of the candidates are content to mouth platitudes about radical Islam and about the importance of waging this conflict, but without getting into any the ideological specifics.
Yeah, I would imagine, other than Jim Webb, who's kind of exited stage left some time ago, there isn't anyone on the Democratic side that either they don't understand it, or they do and they just are afraid to. You're not given much hope on that side of the aisle, I would assume.
Oh, we're talking about the other side of the aisle. They're talking about the major national security threat is global warming. So right. We're dealing with people who can come up after a terrorist attack and say that the biggest problem, the biggest national security threat is the temperature. So there's not much hope there because they've decided to lobotomize themselves.
Yeah, and Hillary with you know, when she was a couple of years ago, when she was speaking before one of the UN committees, she had talked in favor of some of this Islamophobia resolutions, which of course you're writing about, which is now in the Congress. Be interesting if that was ever, I don't think they'd ever asked that in the debate, but it'd be interesting for the Republican candidates to get their take on that resolution. I think a few Republicans have signed on to that, although certainly none of them are candidates for president. But I wanted to get, you know, Ben Carson, who's one of the outsiders, you know, he shocked the world, or at least shocked a lot of people, when he said Sharia law is not compatible with the Constitution. Is there any wiggle room on that, or was he 100% correct?
If you take Sharia literally, certainly if you take it in the practical sense, it's incompatible because it's a theocratic political system. It's not just something you do at home. It's not just something you do in the mosque. It's how you reorder society. Sharia really is about running society from the top down under Islamic law. And that's obviously in conflict with the United States Constitution.
So it must be heartening, I think, for you, someone who studies this so much, to actually hear a presidential candidate on a national, who has a platform where millions are listening. For him to say that, whether he wins or not, is almost immaterial, in the sense that millions of Americans are hearing something for the first time from a national political figure. I'd say that's progress. Now, it needs to go further, but that's huge progress.
It is progress. We've been seeing it before to some extent. Rick Santorum and Herman Cain last time around spoke somewhat about it. And we're seeing it come out more and more, and we're seeing that the public is responding to it. So the window is opening.
Yeah, it's now to go through right now. I mean, it looks like, Trump, Rubio, and Cruz tend to be the kind of the three leaders. Of the three, Trump is hard to define sometimes. He says things that I think have woken people up. So I think whether or not he really has a deep understanding of some of these issues, I think is left for interpretation. Is there any of those three, including Trump, who you'd say this person really, really understands the conflict and you would be comfortable with? Forget tax policy, Obamacare, all this other kind of stuff, but on this specific issue, is there any of those three that you would say they really get it?
I don't know that there's a perfect candidate, that the guy who really gets it is in there. They've all contributed in their own way. I'm not sure what Trump really understands. He says things that connects to people. He's got this kind of Brooklyn conservative thing going on, like Giuliani, where he just shoots straight from the hip, but then sometimes he walks it back. Ted Cruz is certainly studious. He's certainly the guy who knows the stuff, who knows the ideological stuff, but again, you're not completely sure how committed he is to anything. Marco Rubio certainly knows the details of the terrorism angle. He's very good in that stuff. He's very good on the policy details when it comes to terrorism, but he fails to get the ideological threat to a large degree, which is why he was in McCain's corner, for example, when it comes to the Syrian civil war.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things you think about, you look forward to a debate with, let's say, Hillary. I'm sure it's going to be Hillary, who can, Chris Christie claims to be the one who can really hammer her and be the best at it. He's a prosecutor. I was a little unnerved when he said that he would shoot down Russian planes. And I think Rand Paul, was correct in saying, well, you could be starting World War III if you want to go to war with Russia. Sometimes these candidates can be a little reckless in a primary because they want to appear strong. Is that something that that kind of no-fly zones and shooting down Russian planes, is that something that really adds anything really serious to this conversation, or is that something that we should be worried about?
The interesting thing about the Christie response was that this is the practical outcome of a no-fly zone. If you put up a no-fly zone and the Russian planes violate it, then you're going to have to shoot them down. And none of the candidates are really seriously talking about this. Hillary Clinton, when asked about this, just insisted that it wasn't going to happen. It's fantasy land. That's actually worse than Christie's response, because what's going to happen when it actually does happen if she implements a no-fly zone? Nothing. She has no prepared response for that. Or she's not willing to be honest about that, which is actually even worse than that. In practice, the Russians have a no-fly zone for us by now. We're not able to fly in some areas because the Russians have actually painted targets over there. So while we're talking about a no-fly zone, the Russians have already put up a no-fly zone for us, and Obama's holding to it.
Yeah. Daniel, let me ask you as well. I think we've learned some lessons, I hope, from our nation-building experiences. And it seems like there is now discussion. A lot of candidates are talking about we're not going to build democracies. The Muslim Brotherhood being elected in Egypt is not a good thing. You think we're past that? Is there still, at least on the Republican side, is there still this kind of urge to create democracies among everyone in the Middle East, and that let a flowers bloom, and have we moved beyond that, or you still think that that's a temptation on the Republican side to nation build?
They have absolutely not moved beyond it, which is why Carson's views, Cruz's views, Trump's views are still considered an outsider, and why Rubio is still pushing the whole democracy thing, and Jeb Bush is pushing the whole democracy thing. That's considered the mainstream consensus, even though it really dates back to this kind of oddball World War I, World War II stuff. It's really not applicable here. But they can't let go of it, because really, if they let go of it, then they have to default to this kind of what they consider isolationism, which means limit these people from coming into the United States, protect the United States. And they don't want to do that. They want to have the whole idea that we can exploit our values.
Well, that's kind of frightening, I guess. But I guess one of the good things is, with all these Republican debates and all the candidates, and I think I'm kind of hardened. I hope you're hardened that we're having conversations now that I know we had them briefly in some of the previous, but this has become particularly this last debate, this has become a dominant issue. National security is going to be, I think, the issue. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's still too early and it could slip back where national security becomes second or even third in the general election?
For national security to be the issue, it has to be on the radar. So after the attack, it was on the radar. But Hillary Clinton does not want to run really on national security. She wants it to be in the background. The media want what she wants. Worst, actually, they want Bernie Sanders, who can't talk about national security at all, who has no idea what's going on. So if there's constant pressure, if these attacks happen, if there are developments in Syria and Iraq, then I think national security is going to be on the radar. Otherwise, they would be very happy with the complicity of the media to push it off.
Well, I appreciate everything you're doing, Daniel, and educating us, and your great writing at Front Page. And thank you for all you do. And I know we have to wrap up, and I want to remind everyone to please go to jamieglazoff.com, make an end of the year contribution, and support Jamie so he can continue to have people like Robert Spencer and Daniel Greenfield on his show. Daniel, you're doing an incredible job of educating all of us. It's always a great experience and great time to be with you. So thank you tonight. And I hope to be able to host a show and talk to you again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for a great interview.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel.